publisher AutoBeat Group, and likewise one of his panelists, Gene Redfield, is also familiar to you. They're joined by Nigel Francis, Senior Automotive Advisor to the State of Michigan and Senior Vice President, Automotive Industry Office, Michigan Economic Development Corporation. Nigel comes to the state government with 29 years of executive experience in the global automotive sector, encompassing both technical and technology management in North America, Europe, and Asia. Mr. Hampton, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Gene and Nigel have been reporters for me today. They've been taking notes all day, and we're going to do a little quick summary of what they observed. First of all, what would you say, what kind of themes came out of today's sessions? Nigel, start with you.
I think it was a perfect event for me. I saw coming together within the event here over the last day and a half, you know, the connected, the automated, the autonomous, the importance of alternative propulsion. We've heard that mass in vehicles is important. We've heard about talent and technology. We've had capital people. There's a big mix there. I see a big mixing bowl, and the question is, how quickly is the mixer going to move all this around, and how quickly are we going to see these this paradigm shift in mobility within both North America and Asia and Europe?
Seems like we've probably raised as many questions as we've answered as usual, but Gene, your comments on this?
That's what we expected, is to get lots of conversation going and, of course, getting those issues raised. I think the couple of things that stood out for me were Larry's comments about it's really about and, not or. There's not going to be a single silver bullet, single solution, one way that we're going to change into, but it will be a huge set of options. Sue did a good job describing it as a system of systems and really talking about how do we assess those systems. And then I was really excited to hear some of the specifics around new business models, some of the research that's going on in terms of connected and autonomous vehicles, both out at Umtree and through the military bases. So I thought it was a great day and a half.
Yeah, and I think one of the points that I think was very common within certainly the early part of the day was around the importance of safety, which of course is very critically of interest to everybody. But what was starting to come out as well was this personalization, and I actually put it down, personalization. So I feel that what we're probably going to see is that the emphasis on safety is going to continue, but there is going to be a growing and perhaps very rapid growth in this personalization. And that personalization is ultimately, it's the personalization of a vehicle or a means of transportation for a person. And that's very important, because at the end of the day, that person is actually also the person that's buying the motor car, buying the motorcycle, paying for the lease car, paying for the lease bicycle, whatever. So personalization I can see becoming very, very important in the future here, very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Gene, was there anything that you expected to hear discussed here that wasn't?
I think some of the concerns about what are the barriers to moving forward, we touched on it a little bit, but I thought would hear more about, you know, regulatory barriers, ambiguity around standards, ambiguity around liability. And it got mentioned in passing, but it didn't become the conversation.
I kind of like that.
Right.
I like the positive attitude.
Right.
I mean, I certainly share that sense that somehow this is all going to happen, that these issues will be resolved one way or another. There seems to be some momentum growing in the whole area of mobility that's accelerating this whole process, and one way or another it will come to fruition. I think we could do a conference entirely on the subject of the legal and regulatory matters.
It'd be a snoozer for me.
I think you're absolutely right, Bill. You know, and several people said this, and I think we know this, but let's reflect on what the industry, the mobility industry is. It's basically a demand-driven industry. And what we are seeing right now, in my opinion, and many others' opinion, is a groundswell of movement in a particular direction. And that's being driven, and we talk about smartphones. I'd just like to point out that actually we've got smart watches now. And if you extrapolate that at the rate of change that we have, perhaps we should just be talking about a means that a person's personal DNA in terms of how they want to be transported, what the environment that they want to be transported in is, where they're going to be going, how they want to interact with other people and their environment in its widest sense. That's just going to be carried around somehow with them, and the mobility solutions of the future will have to provide the solution that is demanded. And I believe that demand will be subtly different in Asia, Europe, and the North American region.
Well, maybe not so subtle. I mean, there have got to be parts of the world that are ready to do this right now.
Absolutely.
I really like Larry's thought that the way to move this along is to get it in front of consumers, let them see it, try it. It's that's been the case with electric cars and hybrids, for that matter, and a lot of other technologies that developers realize that you got to go out and do these little consumer clinics almost and say, here, try this, drive it around, see what it's like. And that does such a greater selling job than talking about it does. Mm-hmm. So.
There were a couple phrases that stuck with me and jotted them down. One was the idea of the digital persona. And what role does the digital persona play in our mobility options? How do our mobility options actually allow us to take our digital persona with us as we go? Because that's kind of what the customer expectation is going to be. And the other is the idea of the customer at the center versus the auto at the center.
Yeah, and I think that's a clear driver, absolutely clear driver. I believe everybody feels that this is going to happen, and at the end here we saw it's not if, it's when. I believe very, very clearly, and the work that we've done in the state of Michigan, we looked out 30 years. Very recently, we've looked out 30 years to roughly the 2040 period, and at that time frame, it's happened. So the question for us at the state is, when is it going to happen roughly, so that we can prepare within the state the infrastructural things that we need to do to allow the great businesses in the state of Michigan to make that change, to go through that paradigm change. And further to that, I think the conference for me was very, very important in that before the conference, I felt that there were a lot of people that felt that most software development was not done in the state of Michigan. Absolutely not the case. Absolutely not the case. Anybody that has seen this, been a part of this conference, could not miss the fact that we've got the great car companies and suppliers in the state of Michigan doing hundreds of millions of lines of code, which is very complex code, which is embedded in our vehicles. One of our problems is that we're too humble about how good we are and what we do.
Yeah, the capabilities in Michigan are in this area are pretty daunting, but yep. I think, as a number of people pointed out, the real issue is mobilizing and acting on that capability, because if it doesn't happen here, it will happen somewhere, and then we'll be sorry.
Well, I think it is happening, and it is happening here, and we need more and more of it to be happening here.
Any closing thoughts? We were running a little long, so we're tightening it up.
Yeah, from my side, I think it was wonderful experience to be here and actually listen to the speakers and learn about how it's all coming together. So my challenge to you would be, what's the follow-up to this? I would hope that there would be a follow-up to this sometime in in maybe half a year or a year's time. Don't leave it too long.
We do
Very
want
useful.
you to stay tuned because that is exactly what's going to happen. The advancedmobilityproject.com site is a good place to keep up on what we'll be doing next. And we, again, are using this event in a way to debut that service, and it will be, it's operational now, and I hope you'll take a look. As I said earlier in the day, its function is to provide kind of balanced news about all this. There's a lot going on, but it's kind of hard to go to a single place and track it, and we want to become that place. We're not particularly championing any one technology or solution or system. We're just talking about them. I think it's a little too early to pick favorites, and even if you do, those aren't going to be the favorites in every possible market. So there will be multiple answers, multiple solutions, multiple combinations of the things we've been talking about today. And that from my standpoint, makes it a very exciting subject, and one that I think we'll never run out of things to talk about, that's for sure. So with that, let me get up here and do a few closing remarks. Thank you both for rounding up the sense of how this went today. I thought
Very interesting.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank
Pleasure.
you.
Thanks.
Nice, Bill. Good job.
Thank you. I'll make this very short because it's been a long day, and it's been very edifying in a lot of ways. I think the panelists and speakers have made all this very real. You can see that this is not just an academic exercise. It's a gigantic industry waiting to happen and will be happening very soon. I do want to take a moment to recognize all our speakers and panelists. I think they deserve another round of applause. They were terrific, a lot of great information, so thanks for that. I hope you'll come away from this conference with a greater sense of excitement about what lies ahead for personal mobility. The opportunities, as I said, are truly staggering and on so many levels. I, for one, can't wait to see what happens next. I do want to make one final personal plea about the Advanced Mobility Project and our website. This is driven by news and information, and I'm just wanting you to know that my phone is open and ready to hear from you. I'd like to know about projects you have in mind, reports. If you've got events that are mobility related, we can add those to the calendar. We'd like to help, as I said earlier in the day, get the word out about all of this. We're not trying to pick favorites, but we do think there's a lot to be said for helping the public and for policymakers that will set the stage in many ways for this to understand what it's all about. That's what we'll be doing through the website. We'll be doing it through events like this and others that'll be coming up a little later, and we'll be telling you more about those. A reminder that this whole event was live streamed, and for those of you who missed some of the sessions and would like to see them later, everything will be on demand starting about the middle of next week. So you'll be able to look at specific sessions and specific speakers in a kind of library selection thing, so it'll be very handy, I think. One final housekeeping thing before we adjourn for the day, and that is we have some brief surveys for you, and we would dearly like to get your comments, positive or negative. This will help us do a better job next time. And besides that, I'd just like to hear what you think of this first effort of ours. Also, please drop off your name badges at the registration desk on the way out. And with that, this conference is officially adjourned. So thanks very much.
Thanks for joining the Beyond the Connected Vehicle Conference. focusing on making transportation safer, cheaper, and greener. Live from the Next Energy Center. Produced by Advanced Mobility Project. And supported by these fine companies: Magna, Next Energy, Infor, ITS 2014 World Congress, Michigan Economic Development Corporation, EY, Bosch, Nectec Power Systems, and Detroit Public Television. Special recognition to the AutoBeat Group Insiders.